Hey guys, what's going on? This is David Chin. You're on another edition of Panoramics Podcast, New York Weekly's #1 podcast. And I want to tell you today, I have a good friend of mine, a special UN ambassador, world-renowned diplomat, strategist, philanthropist, everything underneath the sun. My very good friend Enzo di Taranto from Italy. How are you doing, Enzo?
Very well. Thank you, David. Thank you for having me, and very glad to share with your audience as well.
We met through our good friend Jason Colker, a good partner of ours. We recently had the opportunity to work with you during Decentral Fashion Show, and then we had another fashion show planned during F1, which unfortunately I got sick over, so I couldn't make it. And then we are continuing to work together on a couple important things. Obviously, sustainable climate is a big issue. There's a lot that's going on in the world right now, a lot of crazy things that are happening. People are in disarray, but we also focus on the positive and good things. And I want to talk a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background because it is pretty extraordinary, right? I mean, as a young diplomat in different war zones, you worked as a campaign manager for the United Nations and the Secretary General in New York, right? Share to us a little bit about your life story and how you got there and what you did.
Yeah, no, that's in fact a privilege. I had a blessed and a privileged life so far, and I'm so happy that I'm still alive. Although I lived in many years in many war zones worldwide, from the Nicaragua during the Contra and Sandinista fighting. Then I moved to Mozambique also during the end of a long conflict in Africa. Then I went to Somalia, Haiti during the military regime. I was in Kosovo during the war, and so on. Most recently in the desert of Sudan, in the Darfur, also dealing with uh, uh, militia and armed conflict. So uh, um, I started my um, planetary journey, I should say, because had as a teenager the dream to be a war photograph. So to visual visualize and record uh, conflict situations, from the jungles of the Central America to the deserts of Africa. You see, that was my global vision. And in this journey, I had also the opportunity to witness the most extreme um, climate situations. I give you an example, a recent one. In 2017, I was in Haiti, coordinating the response to a Category 5 hurricane. And then 3 months after, I went to Africa, where I also coordinated the response to a sandstorm. You see, so it was total, rain to total dry, and this type of experiences, have taught me about the importance of being in harmony with the environment, with the nature, not only from a physical point of view, because obviously you need to be strong and endure also this type of extreme climate conditions, but also from a spiritual perspective, to really understand uh, the the synchronization between how our inner body works, how our brain reacts to certain dramatic situations, and how nature relates with us. And so that's why I am so passionate, but also so concerned nowadays about the this planetary crisis that really requires our best talent, our best resources and effort to be tackled urgently and correctly.
What's amazing about all that stuff, and you talk about your ability and the things that you've seen. I mean, when you talk about your ability and how you worked in this area, this position, I mean, there's a lot of chaos in the world. I think the one thing that me and you talk about is our Zen moments, the way we look at life, the way that how stoic we look at things, and things are just the way they are. There's not you could do about it, right? I think when you think about things that happen randomly, it really is a tough thing. And then you think about the world itself. Right now, you see the world in such crazy, epic things. Everything is going against each other. You hear so many possibilities of World War III. And, I'm from Taiwan, and you hear all these different opportunities that are happening. And what's scary to me is the youth doesn't seem to understand or care for it as much. Not saying all of them don't do, but they don't understand the complexities and the intricacies of what's happening. And now there's a lot of false and misinformation that's coming out. I'm sure when you read it on TikTok and Instagram, you're like, oh my gosh, this is no way that this is the way it is. And you see a difference on there, right? And you want to spread the right message. When you see the way the world is and you see how politically different it is, and then you do something as important as sustainability for the long-term effects of the world, that tells me two things. One, you believe that humanity will correct itself, or else why do this for the world, right? Because there'd be no world to exist, right? And two, your faith and love for humanity and compassion. Now, I look at this from when we travel the world as much as we do, we start to realize everybody is the same. There are only good people and bad people, and that's pretty much it. There's not that much of a difference with a lot of people, right? Everybody wants to feed their families. Everybody cares and helps out. When you see this political state right now and what's going on, like, how do you feel about it? What are your thoughts about what's going on in this world?
Yeah. So what I learned through experience, David, and this is not an intellectual conclusion that I reached, but is really based on my physical and emotional experience in this journey that I described earlier. So my conclusion is that humanity and you know overall, and each individual, each human being has lost this natural connection between body and nature. You see, and so this is due to many factors. Religions, culture, technology. Uh, there is economy. There is a lot of factors that have contributed to disconnect ourselves from nature, and this is a phenomenon that is occurring during the last 60, 70 years. Before, it wasn't like that, and that's also in coincidence with the advent of technology. And I'm raising this issue because I know that you are big in tech, and so it's an important element to be pondered upon for your audience as well. But the point is that we have channels of communication with Mother Nature, right? So the first one is the air we breathe. And so when we breathe, we are incorporating the cosmic energy. This is what gives us birth, right? And that teaches us about prosperity. We can take any number of breath we want, and Mother Nature always gives that unconditionally. And the same concept applies with the sunshine. The sun is there, is a cosmic force that provides life and light and energy unconditionally to everyone. Other linkages between us as human physical beings and the nature is water. We drink water, and we are connecting ourselves with our cells the cells of our body, our biology, with Mother Nature. Food is the same thing, and so on. So there are elements of connection between us as physical beings and Mother Earth that have been lost in our collective consciousness, uh, especially in developed, and industrialized countries where we take for granted that, in the morning we wake up and we can have a glass of water, or we can take a shower, we can eat, we can breathe, relatively clean air and so on. So that um, that abundance of elements has led to a loss of consciousness about this connection. You see what I mean? About the fact that we are Mother Nature.
We're not here anymore. We don't care.
Exactly. We are not caring anymore because we have that for granted at birth, and in most industrialized and developed countries, this is what it is. I mean, we have access to whatever quantity of water or food or health. So that connection has been lost and that consciousness has been lost. Now, to return to your question, why the youth, and I don't want to generalize because there are,
There's
enlightened
many, yeah.
people. Yeah. But overall, the fact that, a teenage is more attracted by technology than by nature, it's due to this lack of consciousness, lack of education, lack of culture. So our mission as adults and as global leaders is to elevate again that awareness, that consciousness, so that human beings individually and collectively become again aware and conscious of the importance of this connection between our biology and the biology of Mother Earth. And that's what is missing now. And that is why we see this destruction.
What's interesting is you talk about this, and I want to ask you a couple of interesting questions. Philosophically, when you think of someone who wants to be a diplomat, and I wanted to be a diplomat growing up, right? I always felt it was cool to talk to people, to negotiate, to bring peace together, work together. And you start to realize it's not as simple as it should be. It's not as simple as it should be. That's the nicest way I can put it. And you talk about in business, when you see things about to happen and ego takes place. And I feel like when ego takes place, it's because you almost lack a sense of compassion and consciousness. And you think to yourself, let me take the worst case scenario of the situation and think the worst possible thing about the person and not think that there's a potential opportunity or problem that exists. Now, when you see that selfishness, the same selfishness that you're talking about, and then you see the global leaders doing what they're doing at certain presidents, and you see this throughout history and going from there, when you try to regain this consciousness, right? You as a businessman, you as a guy who had to deal with, like you just mentioned, places that were very, very difficult, and you had to come home and you had to sit there and deal with yourself on your soul. What did you do that made you feel aligned and realize that that was more important, the world, than it was yourself?
Yeah. No, that's a very important question. And so I can only share my personal story, right? So everybody has different experience, but my um, personal realization is that as a diplomat and as a United Nations senior official, I had the opportunity to interact with communities, with governments, with the non-governmental organizations, with what we call the stakeholders of sustainable development, right? And my realization is that they are not always or necessarily the right people to speak with to move the needle of the climate agenda to the next level. You see, I explain myself. So I've been working with many youth movements. I'm an ambassador also for a very important global youth organization based in Los Angeles. During about 20 years, we reached 1 billion people, worldwide, educating them about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the environmental rights, which is a new generation of human rights related to access to clean water, to food for all, the so-called sustainable development goals. But despite the importance of doing this work, things don't change because everything is moved by the economy, right? We know that. So the right people to the right actors, the people who can really change things rapidly and in a sustainable fashion are very few industries. And these are obviously oil and gas, the overall energy industry that is one of the most polluting for the fossil combustion, the CO2 emissions. So these are the big shots, you see. Then you have the fashion industry, highly polluting. You have the automobile industry, highly polluting, and so on. So there are 3 or 4 key industries that are governed and are owned by a few people or a few groups of people. And these are those who can really make a change. So like of shifted during the last 5 to 6 years from having a more institutional approach. So speaking with governments, which of course are very important in terms of, pushing the climate agenda, pushing and financing the climate agenda, and non-governmental organizations and youth organizations, women organizations, and so on. So I shift my focus from them to the ultra luxury and ultra powerful people of this world. I give you examples. So the formula, you mentioned Formula One. Now, Formula One is a very tiny, aspect of the global economy, but still they represent, the cutting edge of technology and of innovation. So we have been interacting with stakeholders in the Formula One industry to sensitize them to, be vocal about um, uh, reducing carbon emissions. And in fact, one achievement, and I'm not saying that it's my or our achievement, but it's, we are contributing to push this wave, is that the Formula One Association has launched a global campaign called Net Zero 2030, through which the Formula One industry commits itself to zero or at least reduce significantly CO2 emissions by 2030. So, this is a very important point on which keep building because of the exposure and the caliber of, of the message from this particular industry. Another one, you also mentioned, the sustainable fashion shows that we produce to promote sustainability in the fashion industry. So we have been doing several sustainable fashion activations during the Milano Fashion Week. The next one will be Miami Swim Week in July. We have been doing several. Um, and so the idea is to engage the big fashion brands, but also emerging designers to be more protective of the environment. So use less water, use more organic textiles, using technologies that reduce the CO2 emissions and so on. Um, and just to finalize, to conclude on this point, which is very important, through my company that is Circle X, the Green Trillion Club, and we will elaborate a little bit more on this one later on during this podcast. But we have been producing, and you saw one during the Art Basel, the Miami Art Basel in December.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was nice.
Yeah, at Ritz Carlton and in other luxurious locations. So we promote the concept of sustainable luxury living. And what that means, it means that, the ultra rich, the uber rich of this world, who are, usually also the CEOs of big brands or big companies, um, we um, we try to encourage them, or promote a sustainable living in the luxury industries. I give you concrete examples. For instance, Bentley, which is one of the top luxury motorsport brands, as a motorsport industry, they're committed to achieve net zero, to become a totally sustainable brand by 2025. So Bentley also supports real estate development. For instance, in Miami, in Sunny Isles, the Desert family, which is those who have built the Porsche Tower, the Armani Casa Tower, and so on. They are building a Bentley Tower that also is inspired to these elements of sustainability. Same thing with the mega yachting industry. There is a very important yacht constructor, which is by coincidence Italian, is the Ferretti Group, and they now are starting producing mega yachts that have they are not totally kind of clean, but have a lot of elements that gear towards sustainability. Same thing with the Fabio Lamborghini Fuoriserie brand, which is part of the former Lamborghini. I mean, it's the Lamborghini family, but not now producing sport cars anymore, because they sold the rights to the Volkswagen, the German group. But anyway, the Lamborghini family, we are also advising and encouraging them to be more active in producing. For instance, they produce organic wines, organic beers, sustainable luxury travel accessories, and so on. So the point is that through this concept of sustainable luxury living, we are raising awareness and, as we said earlier, elevating the consciousness of the uber rich, of the uber powerful people of this world, because we like it or not, they have the power of changing things. They have the capitals, the technology, and the political economic power to push the climate agenda to the next level.
What's funny, what's crazy about that, one of the companies I work really close with, and is DeLorean, right? And we talk about, you see what Elon did, and you see how politically and marketing savvy this man is, right? Then you look at a new form of car like the DeLorean coming through, and you see the Revion, and you see the Lucid, and you start seeing these other cars coming in, focusing on that 2030, 2050 pledge. of different countries that say that they're going to adjust and make these adjustments for climate change to have sustainable futures. My question is, as you're looking at this and you see the shift in trend, do you think that we're moving fast enough to actually hit without this global devastation? Like you read it that in the next couple of years, if we don't, it's unperceivable that we can actually recover from this, right?
Yes.
You've seen this, we read the studies that we've talked about it in our personal discussions. And your thought on this, do you see us moving quick enough on that?
Mm.
And what needs to be done?
Yeah, I don't have an answer to this question. I hope that we are still on time. Um, from my uh, understanding, I mean, I'm not a scientist, in the tech industry, but still I study, the different developments, and I think that there is a very fast and irreversible shift of the global economy towards becoming more sustainable. So, which means transitioning from fossil based to renewable energy powered, industrial system. Obviously, I mean, you are from Taiwan, you know well the Chinese and the Indian economies. So for them to make this industrial revolution is very difficult. It's very expensive. It will take a lot of time. So what I can say is that we have certainly reached a point of no return as humanity, um, to destroy the planet, to put in the atmosphere so much CO2 that the Amazon forest and all forests of this world don't manage anymore to absorb and to reconvert in oxygen. And so you see the iceberg melting, you see the ocean rising, you see the desertification, and the forest burning everywhere in the world. So we have already reached that uh, point of no return as humanity. However, I think that we have also reached um, the bottom of the a bell curve. So as collective consciousness, we have reached really the bottom. We all understand. I mean, you must be either stupid or really a bad, person to don't recognize that the planet is dying and we with the planet. You see, so that's so obvious, that now everyone is racing towards these 2030 and 2050 goals. Um, in addition to this, awareness and this elevation of consciousness, which is more spiritual and instinctive, because as a race, we are, well how our primitive brain works. When you are facing that, either you freeze or you fly. No, it's the so-called um,
Line
um,
of sight. Yep.
exactly effect. So as a race, as species, now we know that we have to fight to avoid that, and this is what is happening. That's why I say the fashion industry, the automobile industry, the oil and gas industries, they are all running towards minimizing damages. That's the concept. And so I hope that we will do that as fast as we can. You and me, as global leaders, we can keep and we must keep doing what we are doing, which is exactly, speaking about the issue, pushing the agenda, um, identifying business opportunities, because once again, everything is moved by money and business. So if we persuade the investors, the banking and the finance sectors that by investing in sustainability, they can still make money and even more, then that is what can really accelerate the process.
You
And
said it.
yeah,
It's a money thing. The other day, I saw the spoon on Shark Tank, and I remember looking at the spoon, and the spoon was a chocolate spoon. And they're using the spoon instead of a plastic spoon, and it looked like a real spoon. And they're arguing back and forth, and they asked a very pivotal question in business. They said, "What's the cost difference?" 15 cents more a spoon. Now, 15 cents more a spoon, you and I think, most people think 15 cents is 15 cents. 15 cents times a million is a lot of cents. That's 15,000, right? So you're running through these numbers and you're going through, and people look at these price points. And what happens is, and I want to point this out to everyone that's talking about money and stocks and in business, and this is going to be a really important thing. You can't change the climate in the system if everything we're looking at is the bottom line. In other words, we can develop and make things like the spoons. I remember, probably about 15 years ago, they talked about using potatoes instead of plastics for cups. Remember that? Using the potatoes, and it was the selling thing in China, it didn't work. And then what happens is when companies do that, they're more sustainable. And I'm going to point out something that you told me is very important. Then what ends up happening is the stocks and the companies out there that see that they're spending more money on things that aren't important to them instead of decreasing their personal bonuses, right? You don't need $7 million bonuses. You don't need $3 million bonuses. You need to reduce it and understand this. And if they actually did it that way, I think there would be a much more bigger opportunity to get climate control underneath where it needs to be, price points to be where they need to be at, because it does matter if they took their percentage, they did that. And a lot of times when they do that, I think it increases something. And you said something to me one day that was the most important thing I had heard. And you said, "David," because this is my knowledgeable friend Enzo here. He says, "David, most companies, if you want right now to do any loan with a major company, they all have sustainability requirements." And I remember us talking about this in one of our deep banking discussions, right?
yes,
And at that point, when you talk about that and sustainable things that matter, explain in a little bit what that means, and from that point of view, what those companies are looking for and why sustainability matters for credit or for loans or for future endeavors.
right. Well, it's a very crucial question. Thank you for asking, because this can help, the business people and the investors and the financial guys who are watching this show. So I will say this: two things. The first one is that we need to encourage for a change in the philosophy of consumption, because so far, especially in the United States, but not only, there has been this philosophy of accumulation, of spending. The more you spend, the more prosperous you are. The more you accumulate, the more prosper. The concept of fast food, of fast fashion, and so on. So there has been a culture of spending, that's I think, because people are more educated, we return to the youth. The youth of today is much smarter than the youth of our generation, because they have access to much, more information, higher quality education, and so on. So people understand that the concept of luxury and the concept of well-being has changed. Is not anymore to have, five cars and 20 suits and five mansions, but is really to have less, higher quality, and having more attention to our wellness than to our uh, you know um, financial
Okay, well,
accumulation.
exactly,
Right.
exactly.
You see what I mean? So yeah. So we have to keep pushing education in that sector. And for instance, gaming can play a key role in this.
Yeah,
Instead of having entertainment gaming only, we can have edutainment gaming, which
100%.
combines entertainment and education. And there are nice examples in the world in this industry already. Um, but so this is the first thing. We need to keep pushing this change of mindset of, a paradigm shift in terms of spending wisely with more quality than just accumulating things. This is the first thing. Now, to answer your question regarding access to capital, there is a very, very important event that occurred in November 2021 in the UK, which is the creation of the so-called Net Zero Banking Alliance. So this is a coalition of the major financial groups. I'm talking about um, Citicorp, Bank of America, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Deutsche Bank, Generali, and so on. So the biggest, there are, I think, 108 banks and equity, funds and so on that have committed 130 trillion dollars to finance sustainability, which means exactly what you mentioned, which means that if you go tomorrow to Bank of America and you want to ask for a business loan, they will ask you some sustainability certification or requirements, which they were not compelled to ask before 2021. You see? So now, I must say that all this is on paper. We have to see if this pledge will be actually implemented in reality. But there is a commitment by the CEOs and the presidents of these major financial groups to really pay more attention to where their money goes in terms of financing the industrial system and the global economy. So we have an opportunity, and to translate this to business and medium-sized enterprises, and I'm sure that there are a lot of entrepreneurs in that category watching us. So, which means that before they start any enterprise, they need to ask themselves how this business or this company or this product or this service contributes to net zero. So to be much more aware about what type of CO2 emissions they produce, what type of plastic consumptions they generate, and so on. And there are companies that issue this type of certification. So one of the Circle X member is a company that issues this type of certifications that most of these big banks and investors require before granting loans or any other type of financial instrument. So it's a new economy, and our responsibility is to educate about this new economy, to provide information tools. So at the end of this podcast, if we can share the Circle X website where a lot of these details, a lot of this information is contained. It's a free information, so your audience can access to it. And if there is any question, they can contact me or people in my team for clarification.
So one thing that's important is we have a partnership with NACL, my media company, Salt Media Group, obviously, and you and the Green Circle X. And we're constantly talking about Miami, which we'll do up and coming again. We talk about doing this project, and it's important because we're doing two things. We're taking sustainability as a whole, and we're introducing it to my audience, right? And letting them understand the necessities and why this is important, because we do believe that there is an intelligent audience out there that wants to make things better. And we've done a couple of projects together, right? And they've been very, very successful, very happy. You were recently interviewed on one of our shows on CDN, College Esports Now, right? And the Salt Media side of it. So now as you're continuing to grow and you continue to do what you're trying to do, uh, what do you think the next step to attain the youth in the quickest way possible to understand the importance of climate control? And how does Green Circle X help?
Well, from your perspective, is to keep doing what you are doing to, host me, and I can introduce members of Circle X to you so that they can also share their experience. And so there is this educational aspect that we try to make as entertaining as possible, or least boring as possible. And so this is one thing that we can keep doing in terms of educating and raising awareness. The other thing that we can do is to keep supporting young or established entrepreneurs so that they venture in this new economy, which is, a multi-trillion economy. I mean, now those companies that don't position themselves into the green and blue spaces, they will be out of market very, very quickly. And this is returning to that elevation of consciousness that we mentioned at the onset of this conversation. Now, the markets and the consumers are always looking for higher quality and more sustainable items. This applies to hospitality, to tourism, to fashion, to food, to wellness, to all aspects of the global economy. So we can, incubate new enterprises and support established enterprises so that they are more equipped to navigate in this new green and blue multi-trillion economies, and position themselves and become more successful from a business perspective, but also doing good, right? So it's making money, but also making good. And Circle X is exactly this is exactly the mission of Circle X, to support this new movement of entrepreneurship that is more responsible.
I love it. I think that's one thing that we talk about and why it's responsible, why it's working together and pushing it together. Now, Enzo, as we're wrapping up and we're continuing to move forward and that we're going to be seeing you very, very soon, tell me, and all the things that you've done as a businessman, as a charismatic businessman, what is one piece of advice that you would give the youth and the people listening to our audience to be successful and happy?
Yeah. So the key point here is health. And explain myself. When a young boy or girl, in their 15, 16, 18, even 20, they, eat well, they do sports, they enjoy nature. So not necessarily going to the club, which is also important to do, but it's not only that. It's also on a Sunday or even a Saturday, you go and visit a lake or a forest, a park, whatever is accessible to you. And I always encourage the youth to connect with the nature through their bodies, because the bodies, the minds are always influenced and manipulated by many things, but the body never lies. So I I I put my hands in the fire that any young boy or girl who goes on a beach, or visit a lake, or walk in a park, or in a bush, they will feel good, they will feel connected, they will feel happy. And that is the the only simple key element that connects human beings to nature. And we have to educate the youth to do it without obviously, diminishing the importance of, dance and sometimes, drink, or having the experiences that they all deserve to have. But building their personality, their character, their bodies, and their businesses to be much more aware and connected to nature. And this is the key for success.
It's absolutely true. Everything you say is as charismatic and as intelligent as you, my friend, and I appreciate it. Now, Enzo, as we wrap up, can you give everybody your social media handle so they know where to follow you?
Absolutely. So the best link to use is xzen.tv/events. I repeat, xzen.tv/events. I'm sure you will put it in the description as well. So there you have a lot of fun stuff regarding our events during the Cannes Film Festival, during the Miami Formula One Grand Prix, during the Miami Swim Week, the Dubai conferences, and so on. So there is a lot of luxurious, entertaining content there with a lot of celebrities, A-list celebrities that support our cause. So, and also a lot of financial and entrepreneurial information. Otherwise, my Instagram is Enzo Global altogether. And for professional interactions, I use LinkedIn massively. So it's Enzo di Taranto on LinkedIn. And I look forward to connecting with your audience to keep this educational journey on, but also supporting their business and entrepreneurial endeavors.
I appreciate it, Enzo. And in honor of today's thing, I know everyone can see, but I had to wear this shirt. I think you would appreciate it. It's Bruce Lee versus Muhammad Ali.
I can
And
see
I think
that.
you would appreciate this. I saw how badass you are the other day when I saw your Instagram and the MMA, and I thought about you immediately. So I had to wear this today because I was thinking about you. I miss you, my friend. You're doing amazing things. I cannot wait to see you soon. Thank you for everything. For David Shen and my great friend Enzo, we'll talk to you soon. Have faith, have love, and be the best that you can possibly be. Good night, guys.
Always. Thank you, brother. Bye bye.